Vampires, Nosferatu, Strigoi, El Baiti. Many a name for these creatures of the night, and just as many forms in the media, be it classic horror movie or TV appearance, and that's what brings us to the best cartoon vampires. Keep in mind, not everything on this list is technically a vampire by the usual criteria, but I'd still put them all under the category of vampire-like. And at the release of this video, it's International Blood Donor Day, so consider signing up to donate to your local NHS or Red Cross, because it's much better to donate it to someone who needs it, over getting it taken from you from some pointy-toothed weirdo. Number 10. Mona the Vampire. Mona is the weird kid in class. Every class has one. Except mine, I don't recall anyone. But her imagination takes her into the world of the supernatural, where she takes the form and the powers of a vampire. Alongside her are her two best friends, Lily and Charlie, along with their alter egos Princess Giant and Zapman. And yes, they all have their own real-world costumes, so they're essentially really intense LARPers. Having an intense fiction addiction about monsters and mythology really throws fuel on the fires of imagination. Seeing things like the flu going around, or food poisoning at school, as things she can actually fight, including things like zombies, other vampires, and an old personal favourite, the bunyip. Mona the Vampire proves that imagination really is the greatest form of entertainment.
It's not a milkshake, it's a tofu shake. Be sure to eat the lumps.
Number 9. ManBat from Batman the Animated Series. The ManBat was the first enemy to face Batman in the animated series, and had quite an eerie introduction, seeing only his shadows and quick flybys, and hearing a rather freaky screech.
I brought you this too. It's a recording I made of the noise in my chimney.
And when the reveal does come, it's not a disappointment. So dealing with a mutant ManBat would be a problem for most people, but not Professor Batman, who creates a cure to save the day, even after holding on for dear life for a ride around the sea.
It's right below us.
Whoa! Drop in command. We need choppers. We've sighted the Batman.
Number 8. Michael Morbius from Spider-Man. Michael Morbius was your average gothic Greek science exchange student with a tragic background. Yeah, that old stereotype. But on one fateful night he was bitten by a neogenically infused vampire bat to become Batman. I mean a vampire. Unlike your standard vampire, he drains people through weird sucker things on his hands. And being a kids show, they can't admit to him drinking blood, so they say he needs plasma. So being a Marvel show and having a vampire problem, who better to bring in than Blade? It was a close choice for this list, but I didn't want to put two from the same show, particularly two from the same episodes. Also, Michael being the one to actually have the story arc. So with a combination of two kinds of vampires, the Punisher, Kraven the Hunter, and a mutated Spider-Man, this was one of the best seasons of the show, and Michael Morbius being the one to tie it all together.
You will be lucky to make it to the starting line.
Don't forget, Michael, the tortoise beat the hare.
In my country, we eat tortoises.
Number 7. Fluttershy from My Little Pony. At the dawn of apple booking season, Sweet Apple Acres is infested with a colony of vampire fruit bats. So being the local animal expert, Fluttershy reluctantly helps to subdue the vampire bats, while a spell makes them no longer hunger for apples. But the hunger has to go somewhere, so yeah, Fluttershy becomes a vampire. With physical vampire attributes, a more animalistic mindset, and an insatiable thirst for apples. Okay, so she's still about as threatening as a silk pillow, but still. It is an interesting twist to turn the most meek character into one of the most vicious and scary monsters of legend. Number 6. Funicula. For Dracula, having a pet isn't too far out of the realm of possibility, but of all the possible pet companions, bats, wolves, spiders, snakes, a bunny is pretty low on that list. After moving into their new inherited apartment in New Orleans, Nina and her pet cat and dog find the secret of the building, Funicula, the vampire rabbit, left to guard the holiday home of Dracula himself and protect its new owners. Funicula isn't exactly what you'd presume a vampire rabbit to be, with the powers to change form and disassemble and reassemble his body. But Funicula's most notable trait is his diet of different vegetables. Carrots are his default food, but other vegetables cause a variety of different things to happen to him, be it invisibility or super strength, but in any situation his main goal is to keep his family safe, as well as torment Chester the cat.
All of the vegetables can turn him into all of the monsters?
Who are you talking to, Chester?
Oh, well, that's simple, Harold. You see, I'm talking to nobody, because now I talk to myself, because Funicula has driven me so cuckoo.
Number 5. Marceline from Adventure Time. In Adventure Time, most of the characters are a lot more complicated than they first appear, and Marceline might be the most complicated of them all. Being born a half-demon, raised by an antiquarian who slowly lost his sanity, absorbing the power of several high-level vampires and becoming a vampire herself, someone like that would probably have an issue or two, including a devastating flashback of her father raiding the fridge for her greasy snack food. Her general anatomy is unusual even for most vampires, feeding off not blood, but the colour red, and being able to use the powers she absorbed from other vampires, like shape-shifting, levitation, soul-sucking, and playing a pretty good bass guitar.
Whoa! Knock knock. What the dip, Marceline? Sorry, it was supposed to be a joke.
Number 4. Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode is probably the best of The Simpsons, but episode 505 is one of my absolute favourites. Mr. Burns plays a Dracula-like vampire, which is a perfect fit for him. Burns has always had that Nosferatu-esque figure to him, but this puts it on a whole new level. The episode itself has the standard horror movie twist, but after seeing Vampire Burns, everything else is just irrelevant. Even when getting killed, he still goes out the Monty Burns way.
You're fired! Don't!
Number 3. The Kyeongshe from Jackie Chan Adventures. When Jackie Chan and the Chan clan, yes I said that and I'm not apologising, go to an old Chinese castle to do some antique shopping, they come across a Kyeongshe, a Chinese vampire, that feeds on qi instead of blood. The Kyeongshe hunts using smell, and creates minions from anyone it feeds on. The reason this one is so high up on the list, considering it's not a repeat character, is because it's such an interesting vampire. Compared to the standard blood drinkers, the Kyeongshe is such a unique creature. Granted, it might not be 100% accurate to its mythology, so with such an interesting vampire, who else but Jackie Chan would be best to deal with such an interesting situation?
You are doomed!
One more thing! He can still talk.
Number 2. The Count from Mina and the Count. I originally saw Mina and the Count on the Cartoon Network pilot promoting show What's a Cartoon, which had other shows like Powerpuff Girls and Courage the Cowardly Dog, which would later go on to be their own series. But for the longest time I didn't think Mina and the Count carried on. But looking it up for this list, I'd find it had made 6 episodes. The original episode is the story of the Count. Big shock, he's a vampire, out on the town to get his lunch, but due to an error from Igor, ends up at the wrong house, where he meets 7-year-old Mina, who at first he's doing his best to get her back into bed so he can carry on with his night, but throughout the evening gains affection for Mina, finding a real friend. The rest of the series follows their growing friendship, like Mina trying to convince her classmates that the Count is real, and inviting him over to dinner to meet her family. The series itself may have been very short-lived, but Mina and the Count is a very memorable show.
Closer and deeper into my power. Deeper, closer to me. Closer and deep. Deep, close. blood.
Number 1. Count Duckula. Okay, I honestly didn't remember a single thing about this show other than the incredibly catchy theme tune. After watching a few episodes, turns out it really holds up, considering how old it is. To start with, the characters are hilarious. Igor the butler is both protective and rather twisted, and always trying to turn Duckula evil.
Silence, Nanny. A single blow and we shall be the servants of the Emperor of Evil.
Nanny, the colossal scullery maid, is a hoot. Not slow-witted, but no-witted. Never getting the jokes, but always in a worrying but caring mood.
Ooh, look at the mess in here. I wish I'd brought my feather duster.
Or even your feather brain.
Yes, that'd be nice.
And as for Duckula himself, he's a condescending and sarcastic vegetarian, making jokes at any situation, which are either pretty funny, or so painfully bad it actually makes them funnier.
Why is Igor taking so long with the bread? Probably because he's a loafer. He's a loafer.
The voice acting seems strangely natural between characters, how it feels like actual conversations instead of people just reading from scripts.
Funny lad. Anyone would think he didn't like the taste of blood the way he was carrying on.
Indeed, sir, indeed.
And the rather creepy narrator adds a sinister feel to each episode, which tends to quickly dissolve as soon as a character shows up on screen. And for these reasons, Duckula is the number 1 best cartoon vampire.
Igor, I don't really want Nanny without a head.
Why ever not, sir?
Well, she wouldn't be able to see where she was going.
So, my lord?
Well, she might bump into things.
Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Consider liking and or subscribing. And remember to think about donating blood to either the NHS, the Red Cross, or pretty much any hospital. With any luck, the guilt trip will get to you.